A while back, my hobby shop was selling these little bags of cars and Hot Wheels and miniature cars. They were all cars, but I really like this bag because I like this old truck. Now, this looks like a Hot Wheels toy, but it's actually a different brand of miniature cars, and I believe this one is supposed to be a 1965 International 1200 pickup truck. It's a pretty cool little model, and today I'm going to give it a custom paint job and a custom payload. A few months ago on this channel, I took this Hot Wheels Land Rover Defender 90 and turned it into a custom post-apocalyptic zombie car. And this is what has inspired today's video. With this one, I added a bunch of gear and custom attachments, including a large machine gun on the top. And I thought, well, with this international truck, I've got a big bed I can work with. I can add an even bigger gun. And so while I was at my hobby shop, I also picked up this 88mm gun in 1/76 scale, which is a similar enough scale to this truck. It's not exactly, but it's similar enough that I thought it would work. But then I was thinking to myself, well, the difference between a machine gun and an 88mm gun isn't massive by any means. It's, if I'm going to go big, I might as well go big. And so what's bigger than an 88mm gun? That's right, an atomic bomb. The first step in this customization is to take everything apart. So to do that, I have to grind away these rivets that hold everything together, and I'm using my Dremel and a small burr bit to do that. Luckily, I think these rivets are aluminum, so they don't really take that much time to grind away, and once I grind off the top of it, everything sort of slides off relatively easily. I didn't think that all of these parts would be separately riveted in, so I do have to go in and carefully unrivet everything to get out all the other parts. I also grind away the little connection points that hold the axle shaft of the wheels in place. As you can tell, I'm not a car guy, but I think those are the axle shafts. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll replace the connection points later, but for now, I just need to clean up all of this mess. Now, in my last custom Hot Wheels, I just sanded off some of the paint. With this one, I'm actually going to strip away the paint using a paint stripper. This is the one I'm using, and it actually worked really well because after applying it, within a few minutes, it looked like this. You can see all the paint just peeling away. This stuff is pretty nasty, so I'm doing this outside, and I clean up everything as safe as I can. I had a few small pieces of paint left that just didn't get taken away by the paint stripper, and so I'm using a few various tools to get rid of that and to also prep the surface for a new coat of paint. Or I guess a primer first and then paint, but we'll get to that in a bit. For the wheels, I'm using the same technique that I used on my custom Hot Wheels toy, and that is to cut them in half, and then I'm going to replace the connection point like I talked about with a small aluminum tube that I have here. I cut this down to the right size, and it fits perfectly around the original axle shaft rod thing, and it still allows the wheels to move freely. And I'll glue these in place with a bit of super glue. Turning our attention back to the wheels, these actually aren't one single piece. They're multiple pieces held together by a rubber outside of the wheel. And that's actually really nice because it makes painting much easier. Rubber outside of the wheel. It's a tire. That's the word I was looking for. It is primer time, so these are going to get primed. These are also going to get primed. These are not going to get primed, but they are going to get weathered, so I'm just going to hold them off for now. I'm going to add everything to some paint sticks and send them outside for a coat of white or black primer, depending on what colors I'm using. And while that dries, let's work on an atomic bomb, shall we? For that, I'm going to use a large plastic pipette thing. And I'm just going to use the top part here, so I'm going to cut it off right at this 5 mark. I'm going to sand the surface just to make paint and glue stick to it a bit better, and then I can start to work on the fin stabilizers on the end. The fins are made out of some styrene, and so I can use some Tamiya plastic cement to hold everything together, but I do use super glue to glue them to the plastic of the original pipette thing because I don't know what plastic that is, so it may not work with the plastic cement. I make a couple of little blocks out of styrene to add around the main body, and then for the rounded nose cone, I'm using this resin piece here, which is already the perfect size to fit on the top of my atomic bomb. I add it to a wire to make it easier to paint, and then this can get sent outside for a coat of primer. I did take one of the drivers from that 1/76 scale kit that I showed at the beginning, and I'll use him as the driver for my truck. He's a little smaller than what he should be for the truck, but let's just say that he's a short king, and we'll go with that. For painting, these are the main 3 colors I'll be using out of my airbrush. I'm going to start with the gunmetal, which all of the hubcaps and the engine gets, as well as the main frame. The body gets painted with this nice faded green, which I thought looked very vintage 1965, so we're going with that. Also just a great color to work with. And for the bomb, it gets a nice olive drab color. And now that I have a beautiful new looking truck, I immediately start making it look old and rusty. I start by very carefully chipping away some of that paint and primer to expose the raw metal underneath using various sandpapers. Now, this paint came off a little too easy for my liking, and it started to get me worried that the paint hadn't adhered at all to the metal. Luckily, I added a clear coat on top after this, and that sealed everything and made it much stronger. I also let it dry for a day or two, and that seemed to help quite a lot. I also take this time to paint on the lights before I go too deep into weathering. I think it's a great time to give a shout out to my patrons over on my Patreon. Thank you all so very much for the support. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for keeping this channel going and for motivating me to make new videos. I'm going to pretty quickly jump through painting the figure, as I'm not the best at painting figures, especially miniatures, and this guy isn't a great figure to work from. He's a little lumpy, so it's kind of hard. Luckily, this guy is going to be inside the truck, and you'll only see him through the window, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Now we can make this truck look even older and dirtier, and I'm starting with my classic wash here. It's a couple of contrast paints mixed with water and isopropyl alcohol. I mix it all up, and then I do what washes do best. I wash everything in color. If you're looking for the quickest and easiest way to add weathering to basically any project you're working on, I highly recommend trying out a wash like this. It is, like I said, by far the easiest and quickest way to add weathering. And an old farm truck isn't complete without a nice healthy layer of rust. Using different sponges and paintbrushes, I slowly apply rust, building up layers upon layers until I'm happy with the final result. I focus a lot of the rust on the hood and the roof of the car because that is where the sun hits the most, and that's where the paint breaks down, exposing the raw metal, which then rusts, and you get a lot of rust on those spots. Adding rust like this can be a bit of trial and error, so I definitely recommend doing some practice before jumping in. But basically what I try to do is I start with the darker brown rust, which is like the darker, older rust, and then I add a layer of the lighter, more orange rust on top of that in smaller amounts. And then I try to blend everything together using that rust wash. A lot of times rust will start in one area and then work its way outwards from a single point. And so I try to start with larger splotches in the center that are darker and more pigmented, and then I feather out from there using a sponge or the tip of my paintbrush. Rust also loves sharp corners because sharp corners is where the paint will peel first, exposing the raw metal, causing rust. I'm constantly looking up pictures of rusty cars and equipment because working from a photo reference is a great way to make your model look more realistic. And I'm definitely no expert in this, but I do believe in what they say that practice may not make you perfect, but it does make you a hell of a lot better. Alrighty, the main painting is done, and now I'm just starting to put everything back together, and I start with all the wheels because I need to weather the tires still, and it's easier to do it when those are together. To add weathering to the tires, I'm using a Tamiya weathering kit, and I'm adding a dusty layer to make the tires look old and dusty. And you know how old tires that kind of get that white, sort of powdery look to them? That's what I'm going for. We are in the home stretch here, and now I just have to put everything together. So I lay everything out so I know I have all my parts, and then I start with the cab of the car, and I put in the windshield, the engine, snap that in place, and then I can put in the hood of the car to cover the engine that you'll never see. And then I reinstall this plastic piece here to keep the hood from falling off, which is my first mistake. I should have kept this off, but we'll get to that in a second. I glue the figure into the seat, and right around now is when I realized I messed up. I should have installed the wheel and dashboard before adding in this black clip here. The problem is I already glued it in place. I sort of got ahead of myself. Luckily, with a bit of persuasion and cutting a few pieces, I am able to work the dashboard and wheel into place, but it would have been much easier if I just done it in the right order. The seats in my figure can slide into place, and he looks pretty good actually. I was worried it would look way too small, but he looks okay. I slide the tailgate into place, and then I reinstall this small bracket here, which keeps the tailgate from just falling open. I forgot you could see this piece from the outside, so I'm going to paint it with a chipping color pen just to make it blend in a bit better. Finally, I can attach the cab and the bed to the main frame, and then I can attach the wheels. I use a small amount of super glue to attach the wheels so that they can still spin freely, but they're still securely attached to the truck. And very carefully, I attach the atomic bomb into the bed of the truck. I'm going to borrow the base from my zombie apocalypse car, which I purposely didn't glue down because I knew in the future I may want to reuse this base for something else, and it's come in handy already. Thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed this one. This was another fun custom car video. I've only done a few of these, but they're really fun because they're small scale and I still get good practice on my painting. If you did enjoy this video, please do consider subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing, all of that fun stuff. If you do have any comments, questions, or concerns, put them down in the comment section and I'll try to get back to you. I do read every single comment and I try to respond if I can. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video.